Toppled Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro appeared in a Manhattan federal courtroom on Monday, pleading not guilty to sweeping narcotics charges in a case that has sent shockwaves through global politics. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani explained the scale of the accusations.
Maduro is charged with 3 different counts. The first is narco-terrorism, which is drug trafficking to support a foreign terrorist organization. And there are a few at play here, including Tren de Aragua, the Sinaloa cartel, the former Zetas, and the FARC, and others. So those are organizations that are designated by the State Department. And this is a newer statute after 9/11 that was used primarily to go after Al-Qaeda for heroin smuggling. But it's important because it carries a 20-year minimum sentence under federal law. Maduro is also charged with traditional importation of cocaine, which is something that's commonly charged in drug trafficking cases, as well as the use of a machine gun or explosive device in connection with a drug trafficking offense. That is an important law because it carries a 30-year mandatory minimum consecutive sentence. That means it's in addition to any other sentence under federal law.
U.S. President Donald Trump defended the operation that led to Maduro's capture.
Today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice.
Rahmani said a guilty plea was unlikely at this stage.
We rarely see a guilty plea at the initial arraignment. The defense needs time to review the discovery, which is the evidence in the case, and negotiate a deal. I don't think there's a deal to be had in this case, especially with respect to Maduro, given how defiant he was in court today and the fact that any plea would effectively be a life sentence in federal prison here in the United States. I expect this case to go to trial. There may be a different calculus for his wife and his child, but what happens next is a motion hearing, and that's been scheduled for March. So expect the defense to raise some of the arguments that were discussed in court today, specifically sovereign immunity. Typically, the head of state can't be prosecuted. Now, an important caveat is it has to be the head of state as recognized by the U.S. State Department, and the U.S. State Department does not recognize Maduro as the legitimate ruler of Venezuela. That's why it specifically says in the indictment he is the illegitimate ruler of the country. So that determination is not something that can typically be challenged in the court. It's a political question, but I still expect Maduro's lawyer, Barry Pollock, to make the argument, but I do expect it to fail.
Still images released by U.S. authorities showed Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, being led into custody by DEA agents after arriving in New York from a U.S. military aircraft. Rahmani said international law arguments would not stop the prosecution.
The United States has jurisdiction over anyone who is importing drugs into the country, even if they're a foreign national, even if they're not a U.S. citizen. Now, some people argue that this was a violation of Venezuelans' sovereignty and, in fact, international law under the UN Charter. However, even if international law were violated, even if Maduro were kidnapped unlawfully under international law, that does not affect his prosecution in the United States. There's case law going back to the 1800s where the Supreme Court said even if someone is unlawfully kidnapped and brought to the United States, as long as the underlying indictment is valid and there's evidence to move forward here in the United States, does not affect the criminal prosecution. So I expect that same argument to be made by the Department of Justice here.
Maduro, shackled and wearing prison clothing, was escorted through DEA facilities under heavy guard, as federal authorities documented his transfer into custody.
Good night. Happy New Year.
Ramani compared the case to the prosecution of Panama's former leader Manuel Noriega.
This is certainly a very unique case, something that we haven't seen dating back to Manuel Noriega, approximately 36 years ago. Obviously, there are similarities, and there are people that are concerned that this really opens a Pandora's box where leaders of foreign countries are going to be brought to trial here in the United States. And I think that's more of a political question or maybe a philosophical one. As far as the law is concerned here in the United States, as long as there's evidence and probable cause to move forward and you can get a guilty verdict beyond a reasonable doubt, Maduro can be prosecuted in the United States. There's nothing Congress, there's nothing in the United Nations, and there's nothing Venezuela can do to stop it, even though it may not be the best decision politically. Legally, it is a sound one.
In past speeches, Maduro accused Washington of seeking regime change and warned President Trump of bloodshed across the region.
Que cuidarse, porque Marco Rubio quiere manchar sus manos de sangre, con sangre suramericana, caribeña, con sangre venezolana. Lo quieren llevar a un baño de sangre y que su apellido, Trump, se manche de sangre por los siglos de los siglos. Con una masacre contra el pueblo de Venezuela, con una guerra terrible contra Sudamérica y el Caribe, porque esto sería una guerra completa en todo el continente. Le quieren manchar las manos de sangre a Donald Trump. ¿Qué mensaje le mandas tú al señor Donald Trump, que es presidente de Estados Unidos? Que busque la paz. Y en nosotros conseguirá siempre una mano amiga para la paz, con desarrollo, con independencia, con dignidad y respetando, no buscando un cambio de régimen. Presidente Donald Trump, la búsqueda de cambios de régimen está agotado y está fracasado como política en el mundo.
Those scenes now stand in stark contrast to Monday's courtroom appearance, as Maduro, once Venezuela's most powerful figure, faces the possibility of spending the rest of his life in a U.S. federal prison. The next hearing is set for March 17th, with legal battles expected to focus on jurisdiction, immunity, and the unprecedented reach of U.S. law beyond its borders.